What's going on, everybody? This is Clint with the Die Hard MMA podcast. This podcast was filmed exclusively for odds.com. Be sure to click the link below. Check it out. We've got everything that you need over there. We've got you covered for every sport. Thank you so much for the support and good luck on all your action this week. What we've got is Andrei freaking Arlovski taking on Tom Aspinall. Andrei is the guy that you just can't shake, James. We have a rule on the Die Hard MMA podcast. I've told you this before. If you bet on a 40-year-old fighter, you better have a damn good reason to do so. You're not allowed to bet a 40-year-old fighter. You've just got to have a damn good reason to do it. And Andrei Arlovski has been turning back the clock for the last 4 years. He went from being the guy everyone talked about as being a chinny fighter, a guy that was on his way out, to a guy that you just can't get rid of. He's 3-1 in his last 4 and arguably won the split decision against Augusto Sakai. The guy could be 4-1 in his last 5. And then he got knocked out by Walt Harris, which, okay, who doesn't? Walt popped for performance-enhancing drugs that night. You could erase that one from his record, too. This guy has been incredible. He's been surviving at the top of the chain all these years and fighting a mid-tier of competition, which he's done very, very well against. You cannot write off Andrei Arlovski. Tom Aspinall is the newest, hottest kid on the block, though. 9 wins, 2 losses, 8 of those wins coming by knockout. Big power, sharp hands, good boxing, but he's fought absolutely nobody. He's 2-0 in the UFC, and he fought the ghost, the inflated ghost of Jake Collier. He fought Alan Boudreaux. I mean, he got rid of both those guys in the very first round of their fights, and damn well he should have. So the guy's got power. We know that. But what's going to happen when he fights a finessing, high-level striker like Andrei Arlovski, who's got 50 professional fights? Talk to me about this one, James.
Yeah, this is a dangerous fight, for both. Obviously, with Arlovski coming off the win over Boser, I thought, and look, Canadian bias aside here, I thought Boser won that fight. I thought that was more of an indication of Boser not really putting on his best foot forward in that fight against Arlovski than it was Arlovski winning. But nonetheless, the Philippe Lins win, I'll give him that. That was another fight where I think he was the underdog and took care of business. But the fight before that, he got knocked out by Rosenstrike. See, that's what kind of worries me a little bit, is that Arlovski still can be finished. And you talked about the age there, 42 years old. That's one thing that does scare me here. Now, obviously, on paper, if you're looking at it, Arlovski's fought everyone, right? I mean, he's got a huge experience advantage in this. He has turned back the clock. He is the exception to the rule. I remember when he fought Brett Rogers in Strikeforce, and he decided for some reason he was going to stand and trade with the guy whose only way to win that fight was to knock him out, and he did that, and he got finished. That was I just remember watching that, being like, I think his career's done at this point. But you're right, he turned back the clock. He ended up going on this crazy run, and obviously now it's been sort of a mixed result. I mean, he had the 4 fight unbeaten, or couldn't get a win in his last 4 fights, and then ended up, I think he's 3 wins in his last 4 fights, other than the Rosenstrike loss. But we're going to learn a lot about Tom Aspinall here in this fight. Like you mentioned, hasn't been incredibly battle tested. Did fight in Cage Warriors. I mean, that's a good promotion, but
it's a good promotion. The
guy he fought in there, the one that he fought to get in the UFC, was only 2-0. That's a big red flag as far as I'm concerned. And the guy before that, 6-2, guy before that, 3-7. That's where I do take a little bit of pause here. So I don't think it's a slam dunk that Aspinall wins. I think the way you do this fight is you get a little bit tricky in this one, okay? So what I would say is, I think the likely result in this fight is that Aspinall knocks him out. I do think he can do that. I think he's young, he's fast. I mean, how many heavyweights in the division are 27 years old, like we were talking about before, other than maybe Jared Vander and Spivak, right? But I think in general, Aspinall can win this fight by knockout. So I would look at the knockout prop for Tom Aspinall, which I don't know what type of value you're going to get. Let me look right here. We don't have the knockout prop yet per se, but I'm looking at the inside the distance. It's -110, which is you're not getting. I mean, it's better than almost 3-1. I mean, Aspinall should not be a 3-1 favorite here. I think we can agree with that. I see this more as a pick'em, to be honest. But I think if Arlovski wins, I don't think it'll be a finish. I could see it being more of a decision here, where Aspinall he's throwing the kitchen sink and it's not working out for him, and Arlovski picks up a decision. So I would almost do like a Aspinall inside the distance, and then maybe take like an Arlovski by decision, which, get this, Clint, plus 350 for Andrei Arlovski by decision. His last finish win, it's been a while. I'm looking here. His last stoppage win was May of 2015 against Travis Brown. That's the last time Andrei Arlovski won a fight by stoppage. So that's what I would look at in this fight. I get a little bit creative with the props. Who am I picking, though? I'm taking Tom Aspinall. I have to. At this point, I know that Arlovski turning back time with the last 2 fights. Like I said, I think the Bozer fight was more of a case of Bozer not showing up. I think Aspinall rises to the occasion and takes advantage here, and he knows what's at stake here, right? If he gets this win, he's going to get shot up like a rocket in that division. I think he gets it done. I think he knocks out Andrei Arlovski.
I couldn't agree more, James. I couldn't agree more. And honestly, you've gotten extremely creative with that setup, and I really like it because Andrei Arlovski can be knocked out by big, sharp power punchers. It's been a while since he's fought one of those. Augusto Sakai is more of a volume guy. Ben Rothwell doesn't have the power he used to. Philip Linz is a complete bust and a fraud, in my opinion. Tanner Bozer, so much smaller than Arlovski, he couldn't get that KO switch hit. So it's Jairzinho and Walt, who are 2 big power hitters, that knocked him out last. The only thing for me is I can add a little grain of salt there that as far as power goes in the UFC, my scale goes Francis Ngannou, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So I don't think it's that bad of a loss that he got knocked out.
Right, good point.
But it's there. And Tom Aspinall is fast, he's precise, and he hits hard. But he has yet to win or lose by decision. He's never seen the judges' scorecards. I'm not confident that he knows how to. So if he gets out of round 1, I don't know what he brings to the table in round 2. I especially don't know what he brings to the table in round 3. So I love it. If you want to take the bet, do Aspinall inside the distance, just barely lay in -110, and then hit the other side a little bit smaller, hedge it with Andrei Arlovski by decision at +350. That's a pretty sweet spot to kind of lock up which way this fight should go. If Aspinall shows up and wins his first ever decision in his career, I'd kind of be okay with losing, a unit and a half or whatever it may be that you decide to split to make sure you're hitting both sides of that coin.
Yeah, good point. By the way, did interview Aspinall, really good stuff. You can check that out here on the channel as well. Just kind of giving some insight on taking this fight as well. And one thing I actually give him credit for, he talked about his anxiety. He gets really nervous before fights and talked about how he deals with that and how much he loves fighting, that sort of helped him overcome the anxiety as well. A little interesting tidbit there. So if you guys want to check that out, like I said, it's on the playlist for UFC Vegas 19. So there you go.
Lots of good listening to do on James's playlist this week. 18 interviews my man did for this one. Lots of nuggets of information there. And shout out to Troy Nowak calling us the deadliest combination on YouTube.
Love Troy, man.
Love
one of my big supporters on my channel. Love him. He's great.
Thank you, Troy. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. All right, finally we get to move to the main card of UFC Vegas 19. We got 5 fights here. Middleweight tilt. Phil Hawes taking on Nassourdine Imavov. And James, I'm pissed. I'm pissed because the bookies are not stupid people. And when we get opportunities, we have to punish them. We did just that. This is a fight that got scrapped. Hello, thank you, COVID times. And they've reset the line. I had +140 in my pocket on Nassourdine Imavov, and James, it's a pick'em. They're not giving me plus money on Nassourdine Imavov this time around. I got to pay -110 if I want to play my guy, and I'm a little upset about it.
Yeah, close fight. I agree with the odds, and I agree if you could get him at plus money, that is very interesting here. Of course, Imavov trains with Cyril Gain, coached by Fernand Lopez, so that's interesting. Had a great UFC debut against Jordan Williams in a fight. Was he the favorite? I feel like he was. Prior to that, had the win over Jonathan Meunier, the UFC vet. So this guy has some decent competition here. 24 years old, 6'3" with a 75.6-inch reach. Phil Hawes, 6 feet tall with a 77.5-inch reach. So it's actually Phil Hawes with the reach advantage in this fight. And we know the story with Phil Hawes. Has probably had the longest road to the UFC of any fighter, was on Tough, was on Contender Series twice. I mean, this guy, he paid his dues to get where he is. And one of the cool things when I spoke to him, was the first time I had a chance to interview him, is that he said he was pretty much ready to give up on his career. And it actually was his manager, Daniel Rubenstein, who sort of convinced him to get back into it. And that's why you see Hawes making that change. He was at Albuquerque training at Jackson's. Now he's at Sanford MMA, another Sanford fighter on this card. The theme of Florida really going strong on this card or whatever. And Hawes, I mean, he made quick work of Jacob Malkoun in his last fight, 18 seconds. But do you want to warn people about that? Jacob Malkoun, I talked about this with Casey O'Neill. Malkoun only had 4 fights. Like, again, these are fighters that I think need a little bit more seasoning. I know, you can have as many amateur fights or as many, whatever other disciplines coming into the UFC, but I think 4 fights is not enough for anyone. And there are fighters out there that have more experience. So I felt like in some ways that wasn't a good indication of that, but I did like the win on Contender Series. The Bestiev or whoever he fought on that card, that guy was 10-3 and he finished him in the first round. Hawes has some power. He's kind of got a little bit of Hector Lombard vibes going in that division because he's a bit of a smaller middleweight, but he can pack a punch, right? And I think if people are trying to, reference old Phil Hawes fights, I think that's a bad idea. You look at like when he got knocked out by Julian Marquez or when he lost to Lewis Taylor in World Series of Fighting. That Phil Hawes doesn't exist anymore. This is Phil Hawes 2.0. The confidence is back. He's at a good camp where he's at right now, getting to work with really high-level fighters like Vicente Luque and Gilbert Burns, and just a lot of really outstanding middleweights. I mean, those are welterweights, but you get what I'm saying, guys that are sort of around that weight class. Jason Jackson as well over in Bellator as well. So as far as what I look at in the matchup here, I mean, both guys have good stand-up. Obviously, Imidov has a ground game as well. He's got a couple submission wins on top of that, but I think Hawes has the edge in power, and that's why I'm picking him here. So I think I know where you're going in this one, but I'm going Phil Hawes in this one. I think he does it again, and I think that he's at the right point in his career right now where he's going to just take off, and I think this is the next step with him getting a nice win here.
Okay.